Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Cindy with an S sent me this story, and I believe this is something we've talked about probably 4 times, maybe 5 times on this channel. And that's the concept of corner crossing. Corner crossing. It's a big deal out west. And we've had cases we've talked about here where people have been prosecuted. We've had cases where people have been sued. And there is still this big gray area about whether or not any of this is a problem, whether it's legal, illegal, what they can do to solve it. And a man named Angus M. Thurmer Jr., who writes for Wyofile.com, has written a whole bunch of great articles following this. And he points out that now there's a proposed bill that would make corner crossing legal in Wyoming, settling a long-running debate. And of course, the concept of trespass, what we're talking about. If I set foot on your property without your permission, I'm trespassing, okay? Trespassing is a state law. It's a state law, so it depends what the state law is. So Wyoming is talking about a bill that would resolve this debate. So imagine a tic-tac-toe board, okay? Take a big piece of property, okay, many different sections of property owned by different people, but let's assume that we superimposed a tic-tac-toe board on top of it and numbered the squares. So across top is 1, 2, 3, middle is 4, 5, 6, bottom is 7, 8, 9. And so you have a situation where one person owns squares 2 and 4. Private property, 2 and 4. Someone else owns 1 and 5, center square, or 1 and 5 are public. And people want to get to square 5, the center square, and hunt there, for instance, or go fishing there. And they have the permission to cross square 1, and if they can get there, square 5. They can get around in square 5. But somebody owns squares 2 and 4, and there's that intersection where those corners meet. And the only way to get from 1 to 5 is to step over squares 2 and 4. And now you can do that without, if you know where the exact spot is, you can do that without touching either property. You just step over. You step over. And we've heard stories before of people who did that, and also where some people have said, oh, I want to stop people from doing it, and they put up fences. So they've got a fence on the one corner and a fence in the other corner. And we've also heard of stories about people bringing in ladders and climbing over. And what happens if you bring in a ladder and you don't touch that at all? You literally climb up and over and then remove the ladder. And so what we're talking about is a very de minimis thing. That is, the people who are crossing over, assuming they simply step over and keep going, the people who own the property that was corner crossed might not ever even know about it. And even if they were to go there and look, they wouldn't see anything. There'd be no evidence of it. So what's the harm? But here again, the harm is theoretical, because if you own a piece of property, you've got the right to exclude people from it. Okay? But there are places where there's land that's landlocked. And so if you see somebody on the landlocked land, they had to get there somehow. Now, we've also heard of stories now of people flying in by helicopter and coming in and landing on the landlocked land to go hunting, for instance. And by the way, that's one of the situations here, is that a lot of the land that you can't get to without corner crossing is land that you're allowed to be on otherwise, state or federal. So a bill filed in the Wyoming legislature would clarify that corner crossing is not trespassing, an explanation that would resolve long-simmering access questions to 2.4 million acres of public land just in Wyoming. House Bill 99 is called Access to Public Lands Corner Crossing. It would amend the statutes relating to criminal trespass and hunting without permission. If passed, the measure would protect people's right to access public land, even if they have to pass through the air above private property to do so. And that remains clouded as far as rights go, despite the court cases that have come in favor of corner crossing. So at issue is whether a person trespasses when passing through the airspace above private property without touching the underlying private land. The laws do not clarify this exact specification, and experts say that landowners have blocked others from public land by claiming airspace trespass, and or, like I said, putting up fences right at those corners and making people get over obstacles to do this. A rep there in Laramie says it's important we codify that the people of Wyoming have the right to access their public lands. Corner crossing is the act of stepping from one piece of public land to another at the common corner with two pieces of private property, all arranged in a checkerboard pattern. The issue came to a head in 2021 at Elk Mountain in Carbon County when 4 hunters used the method to hunt on public land, reaching the public domain without setting foot on private land. And by the way, keep in mind that it says here that you go from one piece of public land to another. This could also apply if you owned two pieces that were corner touching and they were blocked by two pieces that were corner touching, they were owned by somebody else, because that would require you to do the exact same thing. So at such checkerboard locations, private landowners could block public access to 2.4 million acres in Wyoming and 8.3 million nationwide if corner crossing is deemed a trespass, and that's according to an analysis by the company On X, which does digital mapping. The House bill states that a corner crosser does not commit trespass if they incidentally pass through the airspace above private land. The measure would protect a corner crosser even if that person incidentally touches the land or premises of another person. So it's going to come down to exactly what they mean by incidentally passing through. And like the earlier example I gave, a person who simply goes through and moves on, doesn't harm anything, doesn't even touch anything, and it literally just passes through the airspace momentarily. I can see where they're going to say, obviously that's not that big of a deal. But then again, if you decided to build a structure so you can get back and forth easily, that might be a problem. In the 2021 case, a Carbon County jury found the 4 Missouri hunters not guilty of trespass at an Elk Mountain ranch that's privately owned. Chief U.S. District Judge also ruled in the hunters' favor in a civil lawsuit that the landowner had brought against the men. Although the hunters escaped criminal convictions, that does not set a precedent, says their lawyer. But the decision in the federal civil court that corner crossing in the checkerboard landscape is not trespassing does carry considerable weight. And so a lot of people go, wait a second, a jury acquitted these guys. Doesn't that make good law? Well, when you talk about precedent in court, we're talking about court opinions that are written. And quite often when somebody gets found not guilty by a jury, all they have is a thing that says not guilty. We don't know why the jury found them not guilty. A jury may have just said, hey, we didn't think the state proved its case. But what happens is, in a lot of cases, somebody gets arrested for something, they get prosecuted, they get tried, they get found guilty. They take that up on appeal, and an appeals court writes an opinion and says, after a jury trial, these people were convicted of this. The evidence showed this. This court finds that what they did is not illegal, therefore the conviction's overturned. Now there's an appellate opinion that says right on it why these people can't be found guilty. And that would become precedent for whatever area that appellate court covers. And state courts all operate differently. Some are regional, some are not. Same thing with the federal system. But here you've had court rulings at the trial court level which would not necessarily create precedent. But as people hear about them, it does help, because it means that next time police are called and they say, hey, some guy stepped over my property and went in to his own property or public property, they're going to go, we prosecute people for that and juries won't convict them. So that could help, but it's not as good. So this case here, where the landowner sued, appealed the decision, and a ruling is pending. So given the appeal and the different criminal and civil fields of law, there's a lot of confusion about this. So as of right now, there is still the local ruling. A lot of local law enforcement have said, we don't really know what the status of the corner crossing is. So they're waiting to see what the courts say. The bill would just answer the question, is what some people are saying. If the bill becomes law, there are no more questions to think about. There is not a crime that you can cite someone for. Because the federal civil verdict is under appeal and could end up in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, there are some loose ends that need to be resolved. If appeals overturn the ruling, a Wyoming law clarifying that corner crossing is not a criminal trespass would still stand. A hypothetical Supreme Court order against public access may have some significance in civil law. A federal prosecutor could bring some kind of trespassing charge if they were to rule that way, but that's way down the road. And I also wonder if the Supreme Court would accept the case for hearing if a law like this got passed, because they might go, it's a moot issue now. the legislator who's proposed this bill says that it would enshrine an implicit constitutional right because the Wyoming Constitution guarantees the right to hunt, fish, and trap. Inherent is the public's right to access public land to do those things. So law enforcement appreciates statutes that are straightforward. The bill would make our laws clear and easy to follow, simple, direct, and to the point. It's hard to cite somebody if you don't have a law to do so. And so that's one potential way to solve this debate. And again, getting back to the notion of trespass. Trespass with respect to property is simply you've got property, you've got the right to exclude people from it. No trespassing signs all the way around your property, and somebody comes to the corner of it and goes over the property, and they are, when they are above that corner, they are in your space. And I've had people say, that's not true. No, as long as you don't touch the property. Well, in that case, if what you're saying is true, that as long as you're not touching the property, you could come over to the property and just build a bridge across it as long as the two ends of the bridge don't touch the property. And obviously you can't do that. So this is an interesting way to solve the problem. We'll see if the bill passes. And if it does, maybe that'll end this debate once and for all. But it's one of the crazier cases because I'd never really known how serious this debate was until I saw those first few articles. And it all basically was being pushed by one landowner who owns a bunch of land, and he bought up so much land in an area that the land that he didn't own was in essence controlled by the land he did own. And so nowadays people can get these different mapping software programs and go, okay, where is the land that I can hunt on? And they go, oh, there's a square here and a square here and a square here. And they realize, oh, we can actually get to that one by just, there's a one right here that touches it. Except, like we said before, it's an intersection, and you still got to step over. You still got to step over. So, bill would make corner crossing legal in Wyoming, settling a long-running debate. Cindy with an S sent that. Thanks a lot. Wyofile.com, and Angus M. Thurmer Jr. wrote that. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. If you give a man a fish, he will eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he will sit in a canoe and drink beer all day.